This is episode 328 of Jumblethink.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. On today's show, our guest is David Tao. More about David in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumblethink, head on over to your favorite place to listen to podcasts, search for Jumblethink, and click subscribe. To make it even easier, you can simply go to jumblethink.com. You'll find links to places like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Google Play, and more. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host, and we have a very fun conversation lined up for you today. Now, before we dive into that, you may have noticed that in the last week or so, we've had a couple less episodes than normal. It's been kind of crazy around here at Jumblethink. We're getting ready to launch idea camps. We're working on some other new cool things. And it's sometimes life happens and we miss an episode. And I want to apologize to that for all of our fans out there who are avid listeners. To make up for it, in the next couple weeks, we're going to be actually releasing a bunch of extra episodes. Instead of 2 episodes a week, we might do 3 or 4, depending on the week. We have lots of episodes in the can, ready to go. Amazing conversations with incredible people. Now, today's episode is with David Tao. He is the founder of BarBend. You can check him out at barbend.com. BarBend is a fitness and strength sports news site. They have over 1 million monthly visitors, and David was named to Forbes 30 Under 30. BarBend's been doing this for a while. They raised $825,000 in seed funding and $100,000 from all 3 founders. We're going to be talking about the story of BarBend. We're going to be talking about raising money as a startup. We're going to be talking about building online brands. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff, including niche content, sports coverage, and COVID-19 in the sports world. It's going to be a fun conversation. So let's join our conversation with today's guest, David Tao. We are with David Tao. David, welcome to Jumblethink.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
I'm super excited to chat. I've wanted to have someone in this space on the show for a while, that being the space of health and fitness and strength sports. And I love the fact that you're marrying that with online and news. Super excited to talk about that, talk about how you're navigating, of course, the topic of the day, coronavirus, and get into some of the nitty-gritties of content creation, and multi-platform niche content. It's going to be a fun conversation. So first off, I just want to hear a little bit about your story of your journey into entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about how you became infatuated or interested in this space.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed media, and I think my love of media. I wanted to be a journalist long before I ever discovered strength sports, or long before I ever had really any interest in fitness. So for a lot of people, it comes the other way around, but that was kind of my chronology there. I found weightlifting was something I found in college when I was actually rehabbing a knee injury. So the sport of weightlifting, the snatch and the clean and jerk, fell in love with it, fell in love with lifting weights when I was rehabbing an injury from a different sport, and didn't ever think I'd have the opportunity to marry those 2 interests, my love of strength sports, my interest in that with my interest in media. And I had always wanted to be a journalist. So first job, out of college, I was writing for Fortune.com. I thought I was going to be a business or financial journalist, and opportunities shortly after that started opening up in the health and wellness space for me to work with editorial teams in the health and wellness space. I jumped at those opportunities. I thought it was really exciting. This was, in 2010, 2011, 2012, when it still felt like the Wild West, and you could really build these brands online. Social media people were just starting to understand the power of that for other media outlets and for independent media outlets. So it just became something where I got very fortunate, I think, through a series of circumstances to work with different outlets, different organizational bodies, did some work with CrossFit HQ in the earlier days of the CrossFit Games. Now at BarBend, we work very closely with USA USA Weightlifting, and I was able to work with some movers and shakers from that organization much earlier on, before what I do today was even a thing. And it's nothing that I necessarily set out intentively to do, but when the opportunities came up to marry my interest in strength sports and strength training with media, I jumped at them. And then it was in early 2016 where my business partners and I started BarBend. It's been about 4 years. We actually kind of missed our 4-year anniversary in the midst of everything that's going on right now, which I think is understandable. We had bigger fish to fry. People around the globe did. And, that was the time when I thought this could be, okay, strength sports, news media, let's start the brand I've always wanted to see, and I always had wished I had when I was first getting into strength training and first getting into strength sports.
We're going to talk a little bit more about what BarBend is and what you're creating. Before we dive into that, though, why start your own brand? Why not partner? You mentioned you're working with Fortune, you've written for Forbes, you've written for Slate, you've partnered with other media outlets. Why not partner with an organization like US Weightlifting and just create something within their platform that does this space? Why go out and build your own brand? Why was that significant to you?
Well, there wasn't anything that was out there that I think filled this niche. It's also worth noting that while working with organizational bodies is awesome, we have an official media partnership with USA Weightlifting. We do a lot of work with CrossFit HQ. We're still an independent organization, right? We still operate independently. And that's very important for coverage in this space, right? We do work with USA Weightlifting. We do work with CrossFit. It's obviously disclosed and disclaimed, but we also cover other things. I wanted to cover the full scope of strength sports because I thought there was enough interest that where that was warranted. And also I wanted to be able to build an independent editorial team, which I think is very important. And I think partnering with an existing brand doesn't really allow you to do either of those things, at least in the way and to the extent that I thought they deserved to be done in this particular space.
I think that's really fascinating because it gives you a lot of flexibility to choose what you cover and have the integrity of that discretion at your own pace and your own passions of what the company's building, what a specific journalist on the team is doing. That's a really powerful asset to building this brand.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, it also just allows you more freedom. I mean, we didn't want to start this. It was a consideration. I have to say, we thought about it a few times. Do we want to start this under the auspices of an existing organization? But existing organizations have existing org charts. They have existing processes. They have existing things that they're focused on, right? And we wanted to try a lot of new stuff, and we wanted to fill a gap that we thought existed. And the thing is, if a gap exists, then the existing organizations, right, and the legacy organizations in the space, well, they're dropping the ball in some capacity. I'm not saying that USA Weightlifting was dropping the ball or CrossFit HQ was dropping the ball. It wasn't their job to be an independent media outlet. They're sports governing bodies. You know what I mean? That's what they're focused on.
Right.
And they have a lot of other things that they're working on. But yeah, I mean, I think we really had to start the thing that I had always wished I'd had when I was first getting interested in the space.
So you get interested in the space, you're interested in journalism, you're able to marry the combination of those two passions, and you're able to see a landscape that's not being served currently, or served well for that matter. Maybe it's covered here or there, but it's not actually it doesn't have its own space. Talk to us a little bit about, so many media companies are struggling right now. And it seems like the niche coverage is where you get leverage to succeed. So talk to us a little bit about that area of hyper focus, getting down to a place where you can focus on the message, the elements that are important to you, and how that allows you to have the freedom and flexibility to really build audience.
Yeah, I that's a very solid question. And I think the thing that we are really focused on is being authentic to our audience, right? Now, we've gotten a bit broader since we started. I think when we started, it was for hardcore strength athletes by hardcore strength athletes. And we still very much are for strength athletes by strength athletes. That I do want to emphasize. But I think focusing on niche content allows you to really experiment a lot and really experiment with different types of content focused for the same audience. And you have to find 100 different ways and 100 different platforms to reach your readers these days, right? We wanted to be a true multifaceted media brand. We didn't want to just be an Instagram account. We didn't want to just be a blog. We didn't want to just be a podcast. So that means we have to create a lot of different types of content for a smaller audience, which is much more manageable for a company like us than trying to create all these different types of content for a huge, broad audience, right? We are not BuzzFeed. We are not the New York Times. We're not trying to cover absolutely everything on every single platform. And because of that, we're able to focus our resources on this one audience, or, maybe a couple different audiences if you want to break down the demographics, while still providing multi-platform content. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it completely makes sense. But it also allows you to not have to scale as large when it comes to staffing. It allows you to be more clear on the kind of messaging that you're doing. So I would assume that you get a lot of I guess the easiest way to say it is you get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to promoting, because you're already promoting to the ideal market. You're not trying to hit a wide net. You're really trying to get that hyper focus down. So walk us through kind of the mission and DNA of BarBend. What is it all about?
Yeah, BarBend is about providing high quality media coverage of strength sports and strength athletics, while also understanding that a lot of people are just starting that strength journey, or might not really be interested in competing in strength, but want great resources and reputable resources from people in the strength community about how to get stronger, how to start working out, how to make more efficient use of their time training, whether it's in the gym or at home. And that's really what BarBend's all about. Our guiding light is we want to provide resources that are relevant to people who are interested in strength training and strength sports at all levels. That's news coverage, that's training tips, that's analysis, it's entertainment. We want to be the one-stop shop for strength online. And we've certainly had some nothing's been perfect, and we've had some things that have worked and some things that haven't worked, but I really see that as our elevator pitch, and in many ways our guiding light.
I want to come back and kind of take what you're talking about here and apply it to somebody listening. Coronavirus right now is impacting all of our businesses. It's impacting all of our lives in really big ways. But in this, there's a lot of spaces that are underserved that we could be looking at and figuring out how we can connect with them. And I think your story is the perfect example of somebody that came in, said, there's a space that's not being served. Here's my passion. Here's how I can turn it into a news organization, a media outlet that really serves that community. How can others begin to learn from your lessons to find that space for them and excel to connect with their audience and create the content their audience wants?
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is I think it's a lot easier if you're personally passionate about it. Now, that can also be a downside, right? Because it reduces your objectivity, right? I'm probably biased, and I think the strength sports community is bigger and more powerful and more engaged than a lot of other people might think, just because I'm a member of that community. Yeah. At the same time, being a member of that community and being passionate about it gives me a lot of insight. It gives me a lot of drive. And it I think allowed us to build a certain level of authenticity early on in our evolution and in our growth, and to maintain that. So what I would say, back to your question specifically, if you're a passionate member of a passionate community, maybe there's an opportunity there, right? I think we as entrepreneurs spend a lot of time trying to figure out the gaps generally, right? Like, which industry is ripe for disruption? How many times have we heard that, right? But disruption comes at different levels, and disruption happens in different ways. And I think that our best viewpoint is going to be within communities. You could be a hobbyist in a community. You could have a hobby. You could have a niche subculture you're active in. We know most about those. And if you're a member of those communities, you know the sticking points and the pain points. You know what you would buy, what kind of content you would engage with. So look at where your own passions, your own hobbies lie. That might be, the most fruitful place to start. It doesn't always have to be like, well, how am I going to reinvent the internet?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's one of the struggles that I hear so often from entrepreneurs, or especially early founders. They're struggling for finding that identity, finding that place where they're not trying to solve the big picture, but they're really focusing down. You've been able to do that, but you didn't do it on your own. You've raised seed funding. You have 3 founders. Talk to us a little bit about the team and the makeup of BarBend and how that helps create the success for sustainability of what you're building.
Sure. I have 2 fantastic co-founders, Joe and Kenny. And, if they're listening to this, which they probably will, shout out to them. And we all had, I think, complementary skill sets. We all had an interest in athletics and activity and strength training. I was more, I think, from the harder core, I wouldn't say hardcore, but competitive strength sports side. They had very different athletic backgrounds, but they were still passionate about wellness. And we all had different skill sets online, mine being more editorial, theirs being more technical, SEO, business development, site structure, things like that. We all understood, we spoke the same vernacular, but had slightly different levels of expertise in different spaces. And I think that was really fantastic. And I think that was really something that helped us get off the ground quickly because we didn't have to hire immediately. We were able to do the work in-house until we raised seed funding, which allowed us to bootstrap for longer than I think a lot of other people are able to, which I was extraordinarily thankful for and was very useful. So I think that's thing number 1. Don't be afraid to have co-founders. I think a lot of people want to be this singular end-all, be-all founder, CEO type, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? You can share the challenges, and you can find complementary skill sets. So that was crucial to me. I had the idea for BarBend before, months and months, maybe even a year before it actually launched, but until Joe and Kenny were on board and we had a supportive plan in place, I couldn't launch it. I couldn't have done it without them. And our team now is comprised of a multitude of talents: writers, editors, videographers, graphic designers, audio engineers. Because we produce content across so many different platforms, like you mentioned earlier, we're still focused on this niche. So we're able to serve content in many different ways on many different platforms. And our team is multi-talented, but our team's, it's not 300 people. Our team is, we're under 10 people full-time on BarBend. Now we have a lot of out-of-office contributors, strength athletes and coaches and influencers from around the globe who contribute to our website on a freelance basis. They're awesome. But our team itself is still relatively small, and we're able to keep it that way, at least for now, because of our focus on this niche.
As you look at the process, well, let me back up. You said something really interesting there. You said a lot of interesting things, but one of the things that stood out to me was you talked about that process of idea to partnership to launch. And you talked about how you had the idea a year before, you find your 2 co-founders. A lot of founders have a problem letting go of control and ownership. And they want to make it their thing. It's only them. They don't want to bring other co-founders in. Talk to us a little bit about that process for you and why you chose to incorporate that in the freedom that it's been able to give you.
Yeah, I think, like I said, BarBend wouldn't have started without Joe and Kenny. It just wouldn't have. So it's so silly of me to think like, well, what if I had started this alone? I don't think BarBend would be in the place it is right now, and I just don't think I could have gotten it off the ground in that capacity. I think that it's very personal. There are some people with the resources and the wherewithal and the connections to start companies on their own. I think there are many more who do not have those resources and connections and that wherewithal for the particular industry they want to address. Right now, having a co-founder team, it's like a marriage, right? It can be complicated. Business can be easy. People can be difficult. That's what someone once told me. And, the same goes for working with your employees as it does with your co-founders. There are going to be complications, and I don't think there's like a magic remedy to smooth those over all the time. But understand it's going to happen. Transparency is normally what's going to win the day, and allow the best ideas to win out.
As we pivot towards the end of this first segment, there's always a few questions we ask. The first one being, how do you find purpose in what you are doing?
Well, something that keeps motivating me is that I'm producing producing the content and running the media brand that I'd always wished I'd had when I was first getting interested in strength sports. If that is the case, then I am staying motivated and things are good and we're on track. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What is one challenge you are currently working to overcome?
Ooh, great question. I mean, everyone working from home, if I want to be really topical.
Yeah.
Right. It's true. We were not a remote team. We were in office. We were recording in the BarBend studio, video and audio content. Right now, I think our team has been fantastic, and I'm super appreciative of everyone being able to work to a remote setting. But even though we were in the digital media space, BarBend was not a remote team. A lot of people, I've heard a few people say, "Oh, it's probably easy for you all. You all are remote," and the answer is we were not. We were not remote before a couple of weeks ago. So. That's certainly been something that has been a challenge to adapt to, as it has with many companies. But just because we're a digital first brand does not mean that, we didn't rely on a lot of in-office content recording, content capture, and in-person interactions.
Kind of following up on that, do you think this pandemic is going to change your strategy and how you think and process the team and how you lay out how you work together?
It already is. It already is. We've been having more frequent, shorter meetings digitally, which I found to be a lot more palatable than the longer digital meetings. We tended to have like longer in-person circle ups where we covered a bunch of different topics. Now we have shorter, much quicker circle ups online to tackle individual problems, individual issues. Really, like our agendas are much shorter. They have like 1 or 2 points as opposed to 6 or 7 points, just because it's more difficult to maintain focus for everyone when I think you're having a digital meeting, even though there are a lot of really great tools to enable that.
And finally, as we wrap up this segment, coronavirus outstanding, remove that from the picture. What's the next big dream, idea, or goal that you have?
I think the next big thing for BarBend is to really take our video to the next level. It's going to be difficult right now, given the fact that most people are stuck at home, or many people are stuck at home. But I really look forward to some of the things we have coming down the pipeline and planned for video later in 2020.
We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation, talk more about BarBend, content, distributing your content, and a lot more. It's going to be a fun conversation. We'll be right back. Chasing big ideas and dreams is hard to do. It's even harder when you try to do it alone. But where do you find a community, a tribe of people just like you? Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you're an author. Maybe you're a thought leader. Maybe your big idea is a hobby, or maybe you want to start the next big business. No matter what it is, you still have questions. You still have fear. You still face obstacles, and you still have big wins. By having a tribe, a community of people to take your questions to face your fears together with, to celebrate those big victories, you're more likely to have those dreams become a reality. So here at JumbleThink, we wanted to help. We launched the JumbleThink Facebook group, a completely free Facebook group to share those questions, those fears, those obstacles, to celebrate the big wins together. Best of all, it's really easy to find. All you have to do is head on over to jumblethink.com/group. It'll take you right to the Facebook group, and just click that magical join button. We look forward to joining you on the journey of turning those dreams and ideas into reality. So head on over jumblethink.com/group and join a community of dreamers just like you. Now let's return to today's conversation with David Tao. We are back with David Tao. All right, before we get going, how can people find and connect with you?
Sure. I mean, the easiest way personally is I'm on Instagram at David Thomas Tao. I'm on Twitter at D_Tao. That's D_TAO. And then, if you want to connect with BarBend, it's easy. BarBend.com. And then we're at BarBend on most social platforms.
Let's say a user comes in or a person that's interested in this space. What are they going to find when they come to your website?
They're going to find a lot of different content. Well, these days for how to work out and train at home. We've gotten so many requests for that, and we've just started producing more content on that than ever. So you're more than normal. You're going to find a lot of at-home training content on BarBend right now. Not a bad thing at all.
With that, it sounds like this is, if you're interested in this space and you've never gotten into it, this is like a great time to onboard, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's so many opportunities to get interested in strength, mobility, and movement, even when you're stuck at home.
Yeah. So I jumped in there. I'll let you continue on. Tell us a little bit more about what else they might find there as they go in and check it out.
Yeah. News, analysis, and opinion about strength sports events around the world, from the Olympics to the CrossFit Games, as well as tips from the pros, tips from the best minds in strength from around the world, world record holders, coaches, athletes, influencers, you name it. You're going to find a variety of perspectives on training, nutrition, and movement from the full spectrum of strength.
A couple weeks ago, when coronavirus was all unfolding, I kind of got fed up with the traditional news cycle and turned off NPR, which I love, and turned on sports radio. And it was interesting to hear how they were having to navigate an unfolding story that was removing their very topic from the culture that we live in. Sports weren't becoming relevant because, they were still relevant, but the content that was being created through basketball games, through the XFL, through all of these different outlets, it was gone. It was shut down overnight. How are you navigating covering a sport that right now is on lockdown?
Well, the good news is we don't just cover strength sports, and I think this is a great reminder that BarBend is a brand that goes beyond just covering event results.
Right.
It's something where it's fun to cover event results. It's in many ways my favorite part of the job. But the fact is, we are a multifaceted strength resource, right? So how to train at home, the best equipment you can buy to train at home, how to maintain your strength when you're on an extended break from the gym. These are all things people are really searching for now, basically more than ever. And it's all content we're well equipped to provide and are excited to provide. So the answer is there are fewer strength events to cover right now. Many have been canceled or postponed. At the same time, we still have a ton of content we can produce from that other aspect of strength training.
I want to pivot here and talk a little bit about building online brands. That's one of your specialties. You have other brands that you've built and worked on and probably are working on right now. So talk to us a little bit about that space, because I know some people at home, they may be going, you know what, maybe this is the time to start that idea. Maybe it's that time to start a website or social presence on an area that I'm passionate about. It's a great time to really think and prepare to launch. So talk to us a little bit about the pitfalls, your successes, the things that you've learned that would help others not make the same mistakes or get trapped in the same traps of building online brands.
Well, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to fall into traps. It's just the way it is. I'm not going to tell you you're going to avoid them, because they're going to happen, and you're going to find your own. You're going to find your own unique pitfalls and your own unique traps. Just understand that. What I will say is listen to your audience. That's something that I think in the content space is especially true. And whenever we've run into snags, I think a lot of them could have been potentially remedied if we had listened to our audience and really focused on asking our readership and our viewership and our listeners what they wanted and really focused in on their feedback, right? I think when we've strayed, it's been because we've lost sight of, well, what do they want to read and listen to and watch?
Yeah. And that's so easy to do, because when you're doing things, stopping slows you down. But it seems like what you're saying here is that simply by asking, it actually makes the process of growing faster than it actually slows you down.
I think so. And asking can take a lot of different forms. It can be, asking for public feedback. It can be just engaging on social and listening to comments. It could be looking at the data. What are people actually reading versus what you think people will read, for example? There are a lot of different ways to listen and observe.
There are many platforms out there, and content is being distributed across so many platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The list goes on and on and on. there are many philosophies on distributing your content. Find that one platform that hits your audience and just live there. There's get on every platform and try to kill everything and do amazing there. What's your philosophy on distributing the content you create?
You're going to have to play a little bit of triage, and you're going to have to find which outlets are most fruitful for you. At the same time, patience is a virtue, and sometimes it takes years to build a following on a particular outlet. Some people have success overnight in particular outlets. Some people have success over many years on particular outlets. Try and be data oriented, and try and see where your core competencies lie, right? BarBend, our core competency at the beginning was written content. I think we produce great podcasts and great videos now. It took us a while to get there, right? And we had to build the team and build the talent base in order to do that. So it's a tough question, and I think it's one of the most difficult things to answer for content entrepreneurs and content startups. Where do you focus in on your time?
And with that, the spaces are so saturated with noise. And, we talk about in content creation, whether it's podcasting, vlogging, blogging, writing a news outlet like yours, we talk about, creating content, but with so much content coming out, how do we stand out in a noisy space?
Be authentic. Give people real value. There are 1,000 different answers to that for 100 different people. Produce really good content. It's the only way.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about BarBend and where you see it going. You've built success. You have the news portion. You're podcasting now. You're incorporating video. Where are the growth areas that you see? How do you feel like what are the pieces that you feel like you're missing and you want to grow into?
We want to produce more and better video content.
And that's so hard to do.
It is, especially remotely.
Yeah, completely. I love what you're creating. There's a lot of great stuff here. You've had huge success. Forbes 30 under 30 recipient for yourself. You've been able to contribute in so many different spaces. Success is one of those things that many of us strive for, but we don't know how to define. For you, as you're processing what you're building, how do you see the small wins or the big wins that keep you driving forward? Because I'm sure there are times in this journey of creating that you're getting discouraged. You're feeling like the content's not arriving the way you want to the audience, or that they're not connecting the way that they want. So how are you able to keep patterns of sustainability in this, especially when we're in a new normal right now and a place that none of us really know the answers?
I think that my biggest viewpoint of success for BarBend is if we, as a media company, can expand the strength community and can get more people interested in strength sports just by producing really high quality content on it, we're doing something really special, and that's how I measure success. So whenever I see signs of that, great. I think that's great for us and a sign of success. As far as how to stay, I think there were two different questions here. As far as how to stay consistent and motivated, it's difficult, and it's the job as a co-founder of BarBend and someone who's running many of the day-to-day operations. It's my job first and foremost to be the number one cheerleader for our team and to give them the resources they need to do their best work, right? So think of how your job works not only in running a company, but how does your job work in keeping people motivated, being your biggest cheerleader, and being your biggest fan. I think a lot of entrepreneurs lose sight of that.
Well, we're going to take a break right here, and when we come back, we're going to do rapid fire questions with David Tao. There are so many exciting new things we're working on here at JumbleThink, whether it's a new interview with an incredible guest, idea camps, or even one of these secret projects we're working on. We want you to be the first to know. To do that, you have to sign up for our email newsletter, and it's simple to do. All you have to do is head on over to jumblethink.com, look for the little newsletter box, and sign up. So head on over, jumblethink.com, and sign up now. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with today's guest, David Tao.
Mettez le contact, reposez votre bras et attendez. Restez calme pendant un moment.
We are back with David. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
All right. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An astronaut, because who doesn't?
Yeah. I mean, nothing more epic than that. Do you think you'll ever do like one of the SpaceX's or anything like that?
Oh, not in the next 20 years. Let's put it that way.
Okay. What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Think of the dream product or service you've always wanted, and think about starting there. And you won't necessarily recognize that overnight, but the next time you get frustrated because of the lack of something or because a product or service is bad, use that as a learning moment. What
is one change you would like to see in the world?
I'd love criminal justice reform.
Okay. Like how so? What does that mean to you?
Oh, I am not a big proponent of at least in America, of our current criminal justice system. So this is not related to what I do in entrepreneurship, but I think we need significant criminal justice reform and significant penal reform.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I would like my legacy, at least with what I do at this point in my career, to be someone who left the space bigger and better than when I entered it.
Love that. Where do you find inspiration?
I find inspiration from entrepreneurs I know who are in completely different spaces. And the more different their space is from mine, oftentimes the more inspiration I get.
What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah? Fun book for sure. For you, how do you define success?
Very much, I'll double down on that earlier answer. Am I leaving the space bigger and better than how I found it, right? Is my company making a positive contribution to the space in general? It's not about what we're taking from the space, but it's that can we have an additive effect?
What is one trend you are currently excited about?
I am currently excited. I love podcasts. I'm
Yeah.
excited about podcasts. I feel like that's kind of cliche to say right now. It's nothing new at this point, but I was passionate about radio growing up, so it's nice to see that reborn in just a slightly different form, but at very high quality in many cases.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life?
Exercise. It's underrated for everyone. Exercise makes everything better.
Yeah. What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
It's going to take longer than you think, and at the same time, life's going to be pretty fun along the way.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a good perspective. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
Really good question, because I haven't done anything else for so long. My other dream career would be to be a comic book author. So
that's cool.
Tough industry to break into. So I don't know if I would be doing that, but it'd be something I could certainly get a lot of joy out of, I think.
Do a little fun side project and use Kickstarter. Do it on your own.
Hey, wouldn't be the first.
And finally, what is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Let's put it that, writing a comic book. Let's double down on that one.
Awesome. As we wrap up, we always like to leave our guests have a final thought. What is your final thought for all of us listening today?
My final thought is we're going through tough times, and it's okay to feel like you're struggling, and it's okay to not feel like things are optimal right now, but just keep moving, because if that momentum is difficult to build, right? Momentum is difficult to build. So even if you're not moving as fast and as far forward as you'd like in a given time frame right now, especially with what's going on in the world, don't stop moving, because as soon as you come to a complete stop, it's really tough to get going again. And when things open back up and when opportunities open back up, you're going to be glad that you're moving forward at least a little bit.
So good. David, thank you so much for taking time out. Love what you're creating. Love how you're reinventing or inventing in a space that was underserved, and how you are creating a new story of possibilities for others to follow the model that you've built.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, I want to thank David for being on today's show. You can find all of his links in the episode notes, so go check that out. You really should go check out BarBend. Super cool stuff that they are creating. I also want to take a moment and just thank you for tuning into today's show. It means the world to me that you would listen, and I hope that today's show and Jumble Think as a whole really encourages you on the journey of chasing ideas and dreams. We really believe here at Jumble Think that you are created for something awesome and that your dreams and ideas matter. Now, that's my challenge for you today. With the world changing around us, this is a magical moment to reassess what you value and what is significant to you. Now, we're coming out of this, and we're starting to see the world around us open back up. Don't miss this moment to reassess, reevaluate what values you have, and create the new world you want to live in. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to change everything. That could simply mean that instead of doing everything, you focus more on your family or spend more time with friends. It could be that you're spending more time on starting the dream that you've had or changing careers. It could be something epic or small. But use this time as a time to reflect, to reassess what matters to you so that you can launch into the future, to the dreams that you have. You know, with David and his co-founders, they took the chance to step into an unknown, to leave the safety of the past behind and step into that new future. Before the world gets back to normal, take some time to create your new normal, to reevaluate your values, and to create the world that you want to live in for you and your family and for your friends. Thanks again for tuning in. Now it's your turn to dream big and to change the world around you.
En arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.